Welcome to Collective Frequency.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes?
Recording.
Oh, recording. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Collective Frequency. My name is Wendy. I go by Imperium Paradiso on Facebook, and this is John.
Hey, I'm John. I'm the mushroom guy. Nice to meet all of you.
He's the fun guy. So yes, we love the fun guy, and what we're doing tonight for Collective Frequency, and for anybody who's going to enjoy this video and it resonates with, is talk about mushroom therapy. Mushroom is medicinals. Mushroom is natural alchemy for our bodies, our vessels, body, mind, and soul, and the experiences that you have, and not just the psychedelic mushrooms, but the medicinal mushrooms. And John is actually the person that's going to talk about that. And him and I are both available on Facebook. You can instant message us and connect with us if you have any questions and want further information. And I thank everybody for being here live while we're recording. Thank you, Tammy and Anthony from the Collective Frequency here for inviting me and John to speak about this. And the reason why we're doing this together is because John actually is the one that has educated me on psychedelic psilocybin and mushrooms that were non-psychedelic and have medicinal benefits for people. And how I got into that is experiencing getting off of pharmaceutical medications, having a pituitary tumor that affected my ability for third eye awakening, and I struggled with different things, and I was actually exposed to microdosing psilocybin. And I've been in the medical industry and for over 20 years as a frontline worker, cardiorespiratory practitioner for 20 years in the community. And so there were things regarding cannabis and hemp-related products that did certain things for my body and my body's chemistry. And I noticed that people were experiencing with different things, having good outcomes from the different natural plant-based materials that they were doing, like medical cannabis and psilocybin, mushrooms that were non-psychedelic. So that led me to want to understand more about microdosing and what the psychedelic strains are, and I was led to John. And so John has educated me, has actually created the access because of the laws making it available here in New Mexico and not illegal. He can talk more about that, but the purpose was to actually introduce John into the community and be able to speak about it from his perspective and educate people from that as well. Since I've been in New Mexico, I attended a transformative healing through psychedelic symposium in Santa Fe that was from a 30 to 40 year study from Johns Hopkins University and their Cancer Institute, where for 30 to 40 years they've been microdosing people with terminal illnesses. And so there were scientists and doctors and specialists from around the world in Santa Fe talking about LSD and psychedelics and how it helps decalcify the pineal and the pituitary gland. Fluorides and different things that we've been exposed to have affected us neurologically and our third eye and the pituitary and the pineal gland for that third eye awakening, for that enlightenment, for the Kundalini experience as well. And the important thing is understanding from my perspective as a healer is that, and John will speak on this, it is working together with the person who is going to educate you on the mushroom therapy and understanding the intention of why you want to try it and making sure that you are in the right energy of love and light and healing to experience it, because you don't want to be in an ill energy to have an ill experience. So what you go into it with is what you're going to get out of it. And it's important to understand, to get yourself into that meditative state of alignment of what your intention is, what you want to receive from it. And that led me to John. And John, I thank you so much for being available and doing what you do and the education that you've put into bringing this craft to the public and for people to have as a natural alternative. And so from microdosing to edibles to just the dry. I thank you so much, and the different varieties. So that's
You're welcome.
I thank John for that. So go ahead, it's all yours.
So I think there's a big misconception with mushrooms that you use them to get high, and that's about all they're good for, is to see funny colors and see funny things. And so through a lot of trial and error, we're starting to find out that we can use it to treat depression, we can treat neurological disorders, fibromyalgia, nerve pain, the pineal gland, and so forth. But it has to be dosed in a proper environment. It has to be, there's a science behind it. There's proper dosage and there's improper dosage. There's proper setting and there's improper setting. And a big part of what we were talking about earlier is having someone who's been there, who's walked that path and knows what you're experiencing and can guide you.
In that sacred space, yeah.
Because using them recreationally, you're not going to reap the benefits. In fact, you may actually become deterred from trying these as a solution. And they can be used to wean yourself off of a variety of pharmaceuticals. OxyContin,
Antidepressants as well.
Antidepressants, that's
helps
a big
lot of
one.
people. I've had a lot of people say that it helps with anxiety, depression, stress, and it does that, as well as I noticed. I just shared with John too that I had tried cannabis products and they were doing okay for the herniated discs in my back and the injuries that I sustained, but it was the psilocybin microdosing that actually I didn't feel my back at all, and I was able to go to the lake and lay on a rock and climb to the rock and everything, and didn't feel my pain. I didn't feel my body, and that was a nice, like an out-of-body experience, but I wasn't focused on any pain. I was focused on the experience of where I was in the present, and that's what helped, because the pain wasn't there, so I could be present in the moment. So that was great.
And there's a whole variety of mushrooms too that are non-psychedelic that you can use for the neurological pain and things like that.
Do you know, can you share some of the names?
Yeah. You can use the reishi mushroom for fibromyalgia pain, for nerve pain.
That's good for cancer too, right?
That one is very good for cancer, yeah. The lion's mane, that one is good for rebuilding neural pathways and coming back from drug addiction. That's a big thing here in New Mexico, is that people don't know how to rehabilitate themselves and how to come back from that dark path and stuff, and to repair their brains and find happiness again. And that's really, some of the most powerful healing that you can undertake with these, is all the trauma and everything. You can repair that. You can go into your psyche and talk to that person that was hurt, that little
inner child. It's inner child therapy that you're actually able to do.
A lot of these traumas happen when you're young, and then you continue on. You can't heal from that. You don't have the coping skills. You don't have
because you got caught in that addiction
perspective.
too.
Yeah, you're caught in that perspective, looking at life in a certain angle, and
So is the future maybe practitioners that help walk someone through a process,
Yes.
not only just using mushrooms in the way
well,
need to be used, but also in the other aspects?
I wouldn't even feel comfortable handing that off to the medical community.
I'm not talking about the medical field.
Like she's like
Oh.
a practitioner, like myself guiding somebody. Like, is that
That-
was your spiritual
where,
guide?
That's where
That's
Tammy
what we're
and,
talking about.
And Anthony
And
come
Tiffany
in.
and Anthony.
People again that
And
have
yourself.
dosed, that have taken that tremendous dose. There's all sorts of doses out there, and depending on the person, depending on the trauma, they may have to go in deep. They may have to, delve real deep
And
you
they're
know,
going to need a spiritual
and
guide there
you need
that
someone
has
who
that,
has,
that can
yeah.
handle the extent, because if that dark energy is greater than your positive energy, you both can have an experience.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been on the journey to create the highest light and alignment that I can as a spiritual guide, because there isn't any dark out there that I fear. There's nothing that can take me down. And it's getting people to that mindset within, so you can be that aid on the outside without fearing anything from somebody's, what they draw from their inside. Because you can, in that space, draw a negative energy to you, like people who are in low spirit, they drink too much, they spin, and next thing you know, they have this energy in them that wants to fight. It's because my understanding is the spirit leaves the body because it's too toxic, and it allows another one to actually come into your body. And that's where you see a lot of disruption in the homes. And we're trying to prevent that from being associated with psychedelics of the mushroom family. So thank you, yeah. But that's a good point about the inner child work, and it coincides with the experience. And that's why we're going to need to really get together and solidify that so people can handle. We've got a lot of, in this particular community, a lot of deep, deep, deep addictions, and that's inner wounds that go deep. And who's qualified to handle guiding these people? So it's going to be an elite group of people, and that understand it and not afraid of it, and don't judge people for whatever it is they need for their body, because what you need and what you've been through on a cellular level, energetically, right, John, is going to be completely different. I might need a specific strain that works for me. You might need a specific strain from him that works for your chemistry, because your blood type and your cells have been through a different trauma and journey than mine. So you also are going to need something body, mind, and soul. And so that's the acceptance of the diversity in every one of us. We're all a different flower that needs something different in our soil, which is our DNA, like Mother Earth. And those are the varieties, and that's why it's beautiful to have somebody locally that understands the varieties. So you were saying the lion's mane, the reishi.
And they work like similar, like how cannabis works with an entourage effect. Well, the mushrooms, because we're really limited on within the species and the pharmacology behind the psilocybin mushrooms, there's a whole variety of other mushrooms that you use in conjunction with these. You can use the psilocybin ones as well for the fibromyalgia, and use it in conjunction with the reishi mushroom, which you can consume as much as you want and you're not going to get high. And you have,
So what we were told is the lion's mane is good to like keep using, and then when you finally want to go on your journey, that it makes it easier for them to go through like their first
yes.
journey, because it's kind of
Yes.
like your body's adapted to it, and
It's a
lot
transition,
more-
like
yeah.
steps.
It starts to
stages.
decalcify that pineal gland, and the whole process, you know, getting the psychedelic message and stuff, it's a lot more clear.
And that's where John
Yeah.
comes in, and we can work with you on the stages. It's stages of almost like an experience that you go through from one to the next. It's steps that you need to take and solidify that base as you go, and it's a safety. So it's almost to get to the point where you won't want to sit there and guide somebody constantly, but eventually empower them to be their own healer, and that responsibility of learning their body and protecting that spiritual journey that they're going to, because you're not going to be with them 24/7 and every time they take something. And that's also something about the dosing and how often to take
Oh,
it.
no doubt, yeah. Yeah, I would even encourage them that any time that they want to take an active dose, to come to you for spiritual guidance, and to be in the proper setting.
Should we do like an active dose first, or micro dose?
It all depends on the person.
Okay.
It all depends
I'll
on
work
the
with you on
person.
that,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
something I have understanding firsthand of, medicinally as well as spiritually, and to help work on the guidance part of this, because I've been doing it already. I just haven't been doing it.
Where's a good place to find these non-psychedelic, like lion's mane and?
John?
I have access to those as well. You can buy some of them in store. I can't vouch for their quality or anything,
Yeah.
but that you can buy those, and
That's important because you don't know what they've been subjected to and the conditions they were grown in. The transmutation of energy, this guy, everything I've gotten from him, I feel his energy and it's positive, and that's going into my medicine. So this is a trusted source.
So do you grow, Tom?
yes.
A variety of mushrooms? Because we have some friends that are looking at doing some of that with their property.
I focus on one genus. I only grow Psilocybe cabensis. All the non-psychoactives, I get those from another grower.
So you have people that you know that you get.
Yes, and some of them are grown naturally. Some of them are just harvested from nature, like
Right.
the reishi. Those grow out in the Pacific Northwest, and they just harvest those.
As far as, when we do a medicine journey, Spirit will have somebody like gift them to us, so we never have had to like really buy them from anybody. And sometimes we'll get the blue ones, sometimes we'll get the peanut envy, we'll get the gold ones.
Right.
There's many different ones, so it's kind of like Spirit kind of knows what kind of journey they're gonna have to take, or what
Right.
it's gonna be like. But now they're getting a little bit more intense.
Right.
But it's been really funny because we're going, oh, you know, that's like a lot.
So, and like the steps, are there specific, like you were leading him to the lion's mane, and then what's the different mushroom steps that you would take? Or
Oh,
like the ones that you're talking about that are like non-medicinal, is there? I mean, the medicinal ones, not psychedelic
it
ones.
again depends on the person, depends
Right.
on what they're trying to treat. You have to determine their symptoms and find out what healing are you wanting to achieve, and then you can go from there.
So like the body would be like the lion's mane, you dose them with that. So,
Yeah.
And then when it's psychological.
There's another one called cordyceps, and that one will help them with like their immune system. Yeah, cordyceps, yeah.
And so he'll have all this information working with you guys directly on this, and also being able to, people can do their own research too, because it's important for people to educate themselves, and that's a big part of it, is because you don't want to say, but you told me. No, you're responsible for everything that you put in your body.
I'm actually studying a holistic nutritional practitioner's program by someone local who designed the program, and actually she goes over a large chunk of mushrooms.
Excellent.
Already outlined every one of their uses and what they
Excellent.
are in the body. So of course this is all alignment.
Very good. This is beautiful. Awesome.
So, and then cactus. So
Oh.
mushroom is the feminine, and cactus is more of the masculine. So it's more of the phallic, right? So it's a different journey. So tell us a little bit more about like the cacti journey.
I don't know anything
You don't
about
know
that.
anything about
No,
that?
that's all
Do you?
Curtis.
That's all Curtis and
Yeah,
Michael.
you bring
But
Curtis in for that
it's a
one.
different journey. It's more like as a matter of fact. It's not as
Up and down?
soft and up and down. It's more like
A direct?
to the point. It's more like me. Get to the
Yes.
point.
It's a straight line. So that'll be a good one to have as an independent discussion, because that also looks at the balance of the two, the yin yang and that part of it as well. So I think that's
So
good.
what's the difference between mushroom and acid? Like why those two are used for PTSD, for getting off of addiction and stuff like that?
You mean like LSD? Okay.
The biggest difference is purity. You don't know what purity the acid is. You don't know where it came from. You don't know how it was procured. You don't know if it's cut with something. And these mushrooms, they're just grown with grain and water. 2 ingredients, that's it. No chemicals, no herbicides, no pesticides, just grain and water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now-
and some music. And Mr. Cat, he helps.
So can you overdose on mushrooms?
No.
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 What do you mean by overdose? What would
Well, yeah, that's a good question. An overdose is technically an undesired effect. So all those people that have bad trips, they've technically overdosed.
I think that's not necessarily a mushroom's fault, it's their intention. So it's not the
Yeah.
mushroom, it's the energy and the intention. So we won't blame the plant for somebody's mood and ego.
Somebody's gluttony.
Exactly.
They did overdose.
I'm
they
protecting your
overdosed.
little shrooms
Yeah.
there, John, because it can't blame the plant. I'm not supposed to drink milk. I'm lactose intolerant, but I drank milk and it's the milk's fault. It's never, okay, let's don't blame.
That was the one time that we took like 8 grams and we were like died, you know? No, just kidding.
You like 4 days later you wake up and go, where were we?
Take 8 grams.
Wow.
No, I just have to beg between both of us.
Why you look in your hand?
Anthony?
Half for you and half for me. And it was just like, oh, let's just go through our whole freaking ego death.
You got it over with in one dose. That's
I
beautiful.
feel like we took timelines when we did that. but
You
yeah.
probably did.
And we had to do that when we first got married, so it was like an initiation.
Right.
To walkabout. So it was really intense. So I know how much is too much.
She's been there, so you see, but people
But was
have
it
to
too
have that
much?
experience.
Was it negative? You said you experienced ego
It
death.
was
Positive and negative.
it was
No, but the
That's
positive
life.
aspect is you merged, you faced all of the ego shadow stuff, and that's the positive is you dove the fuck in head first. Basically, is what you did, and it's like, boom. Not everybody gets that. They drag it out for years, and it's like, can you just amp up your
Yeah.
dosage a little bit?
boom, it got bitch slapped.
Yeah. Some people can search for that and search for it and never find it.
It's true, and a lot of times they may not realize that it's seeing and have, but access is important because if we didn't have access to this, I can't say I would be having the experience that I am. It would have been a struggle. I would have felt trapped. I can't just, what is it that is blocking me from trying to reach that's trying to come to me? And so I had to go through the journey of understanding and go through the hell to understand what your body's gonna need, what humanity needs access to, that is Mother Earth provides. And so that was very significant for me to be able to on the format because now it's affecting people. I'm able to help people around the world and talk about it. And we're all bringing it to that surface, which is beautiful. Like a little mushroom, eventually it comes out of the fucking dark.
So how, oh, sorry.
Among
Go
Us,
ahead.
We're totally connected. Like ridiculously. So there's a lot of talk about DMT helping traumatic brain injury. And what I'm hearing from you guys and what I'm realizing more is that mushrooms
Oh.
seem to do the same thing in a very obviously different way. And it sounds like the
Psilocybin
mushrooms
is a
DMT.
molecular cousin of DMT.
Right.
Okay.
And the Wim Hof actually
That makes sense.
techniques
Yeah.
helps people activate their own DMT. So there's different breathing techniques for that.
That's why I never did drugs. I just huffed myself into my own
There you go.
hallucination.
When people hyperventilate and they get that dizzy feeling, welcome to enlightenment. No, I'm just joking.
Everybody get it.
Yes, so anybody else have any other questions for John?
Yes. So, so how important is fasting before we do a journey?
Or having something on your stomach because
It
of
all
the
depends
nausea?
on the person and their diet. You know, someone who's already on like a vegetarian diet, they have to fast very little. They're almost going to accept it. You know, not everyone vomits.
No.
They may
Yeah.
feel the nausea.
Nauseous and, yeah.
Not everyone gets nauseous.
They don't. It also depends on your digestive system and what it's used to because you have to understand how your body typically digests a regular mushroom.
Yeah.
And there's ways, I posted something about the different chemicals and compounds that are in the mushroom and what causes the nausea because I have experienced it with some, but I didn't experience it when I did it in a tea. But it wasn't as potent in the tea because you kind of cook away the compounds.
Right, you really
You
have
use
to know
more.
what temperature it is.
Exactly.
You have to keep it like very mild, like 110.
Thank you, now I know. See,
Yeah,
I
very
learned
mild.
something today.
But for how long?
Yeah, for how long? Steep it at 110.
How long do we
What I would do is get the dough. Oh, go ahead.
Right, sit outside.
I never have done, I've done peyote when I was a child, many years ago. A child, an adolescent.
Well, that explains
You're
it.
talking about the little child comes out all the time.
She's like back at band camp. Once at band camp, superstar. Superstar.
So.
Mary Catherine Gallagher.
My question is, thank you for coming, always.
Oh, you're
this
welcome.
place
Thank
is
you
a
for
great
showing up.
foundation for our community, and I'm very blessed to be a rapture of it, really. I don't
Thank
think
you.
if I was me expressing myself, there would be another extra time of moment. And I say that backwards and not bipolar like Mother Nature, right? Because the plant, we don't know what detoxifications or what has been a regimen for the human body. So I would like to start from scratch, because with a brain injury or whatever cancellation has happened to your body, you really don't know that strict, really, when you're really fucked up.
It's true.
The only thing that you do know is that the people that you do surround have struggled the same type of style, maybe a little bit more sinful, maybe a little bit more safeful, you know.
Still in the inner child emotional trauma and physical.
And I don't think we ever lose anything of that derailment or ailment. So what my question is in a roundabout way, is the mushroom of the patient, of the advocate, to know of its purities and what does it fit. Like a regimen, there could be a test for any person in the United States or overseas right now, and to see what the body can intake. And if it's not cost effective to you, then you shouldn't be taking that shit, right? So if there was something as your I call it, a mushroom is always to me as a penis or an umbrella. Non-circumcised or circumcised? No, I'm just kidding.
But you know the fun part is when you get to grind that stuff up.
I'm sorry, that's what I used to say. Back in California, they're like, man, you can't say that in class.
So yes, I'm sorry, your question was what?
My question was that, have you, the power steering, because my power steering is very flimsy, I guess, because of what has happened to me neurologically of trauma. So cost effectively, you know, a lot of people go, oh, here's high, and yes, CPC and the medical cannabis really have saved me a lot, and the power of the flower, really.
It is very cost effective, John.
Yeah.
Is that the concern of cost effectiveness of it?
She's letting you know how much she needs to take in order to feel better, that it isn't gonna put her pocket.
No, it's not. Basically, you can work with him on that, but it's not going to be a huge out-of-pocket. Like you can, to be honest with you, it's like, I'm not quoting
You could
prices.
spend
Oil, or is it oil-based?
you could spend
It's-
as little as $1
It's ground, capsule,
to treat
or whole.
microdose yourself. It costs literally $1 a month, and if you wanted to go higher than that, it'd go all the way up to as high as you want. You'd spend as much as you want, but for basic microdose, every 3 days, 1/10 of a gram, that's a gram a month.
Is it kind of almost like, I mean, my words are probably a bit froggy, but like, you know, methadone is synthetic. You got your natural elements versus your.
This is all natural, all natural. It's just the
Yeah,
mushroom
this is
and
just a
water
mushroom.
and it's ground up in a capsule, and it's the mushroom itself only.
You need
So
to go through a major dose first
Yeah.
to reset you,
Yep.
and then you need to microdose after
Yep.
that.
There we
And we
go.
would
Yeah.
have to do that.
Those kind of.
Thank you.
Like an how do you say it? Outline.
there you
This
go.
mushroom does this shit for this week.
Right.
Yeah,
So
all right, you know.
Yeah.
So
Because
definitely.
The flower, I'm very limited on, I don't do any other type of drugs. I do my medical CBC.
Yeah, it's even more effective than
Yes.
the flower.
Really. And you don't have to smoke it, see.
No.
I
No,
think a lot of people,
no.
I mean.
Nope.
like,
You
those
can, but this is the
raw
other
guys.
thing. John, if you reach out to John, he can also personally talk to you about the different ways that you can actually consume it and go over that with it, from an edible, like in a chocolate bar, or it's in a tincture or in a tea,
Yeah, if you need a
ground up in a
tincture.
capsule. I've made little shroom shots that are in a shot glass with like, it's like a fruit juice or like a Bloody Mary, and I put that thing in there and
Stop, drink the Kool-Aid.
And no, it's called shroom shots. And I've had people come over before I do energy work and they've asked for that. And it's like a little fruit cocktail, but you can't taste the mushroom ground up in a powder in it. You just taste. And another thing, John, the lemon juice, please.
Oh yeah. Well, that's more advanced. The lemon juice, that's called Lemon Tech. You get your dose, and you put it in a shot glass, and you steep it for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you down it. And what that does is it converts it from psilocybin to psilocin. From psilocin to psilocybin, because otherwise, when it hits your liver just destroys it. So it has a faster onset, you reach your peak quicker, and it doesn't last as long.
It activates, but it's almost like you're fast acting versus your longer lasting.
Yeah.
Where it breaks down in the system, which is what causes the nausea as those compounds are getting broken down. But then you also have that immediate, like if you're like stressed out and wanting a quicker effect, you can actually use that technique where the acid from the lemon actually activates it and helps you have that
Even
desired
for
result.
a microdose, you could do a microdose like that and then do a little bit less than what you'd normally do, and it'll make it more effective. You know, if you're concerned again about what we were talking about to make the most of your dose, to be as efficient as possible.
Lemon, or can you use like orange juice?
You can use lime.
Lime.
Yeah,
Lemon or lime.
lemon or lime, like the orange juice. That's kind
The
of
sweetener in it.
That doesn't.
Orange vitamin C probably destroys it.
Yes.
Well, the vitamin C is
Overpowers it.
the vitamin C is what converts it. Citric acid.
Acid salts.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is if you don't want to chug that little, that shot glass of lemon juice with the ground psilocybin in it, you can actually add a little water to it, and it's like a lemonade. I've done it like that before. I've even put it in my yogurt. I'm serious. I have put it in my edibles. Just like, seriously, I sprinkled the other day, I'm not lying to you. What was it that I had? I mixed myself a hemp protein smoothie, and I had all the fruits that I had to blend up before I crossed the border, so I had smoothie. And so what I did is I put it on a spoon and then dipped it in my smoothie, and I tasted smoothie. I didn't taste that mushroom taste. So it helps when you don't like the taste of the dry mushroom and you take it, if it's not in a capsule form.
We serve it with chocolate.
There you go. And so John, yes,
Oh yeah, those chocolates are great.
they have that available, and so John is your go-to person.
Because that changes it too, it helps it, it assists it.
Yeah, it milds it out. Yeah.
And and dark chocolate is great. So if it's in a dark chocolate, it does a body good.
Yeah, in the bits, baby.
Anybody else have any other questions regarding non-psychedelic mushrooms or?
Oh, yeah. A lot of, I'm a cook, so when we talk about the nutritional value of a mushroom, it can't be done with a raw mushroom because it isn't open in its availability to your
It could be
body.
toxic.
And that's the reason why sometimes that psilocybin and all that stuff upset your stomach. So that's the reason why you hear about.
It could be toxic, like toxins, when it's raw like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Ew.
I posted something on that, by the way, on my Facebook
Yeah.
page.
And
for you.
It just on regular mushrooms too, because of the availability of the nutrition of it. You can't get it until you partially cook it. So I was just wondering. I was with when they were doing Faywood, they were making the tea, so I got to watch that, and they were like low simmer on the water. So that was kind of interesting because I was asking him all these questions.
Which is great because you learned it's 110? 110 degrees, you
Yeah,
said?
we're supposed to do a ceremony and everybody
Yes.
went on their own and went to go do their own thing. So I was like, okay, fine then. You went there.
It was interesting. Anyways, but I was just wondering if you're supposed to always do that, or is it just like if you did the medicinal ones versus the psychedelics?
Oh, that the lemon tech, that's for the psychedelic mushrooms, and
Yeah, but I mean for your lion's mane. do
You cook
just
them or
eat
not?
Do you cook those or I mean warm
Put 'em
them?
dry.
if you have like a real abundance of lion's mane, you could eat them as a meal, but it's not very practical. They taste similar to like lobster. They're kind of fishy.
How do you take them, basically? You recommend
Yeah.
Oh,
the medicinal ones? How
Yeah,
do you
I'd
take them?
suggest
Ingest them?
to make a tea out of it. You could make a tincture out of it, yeah.
Or you just
could
boil
make
it
them
down
into
to a
the
concentrate.
candies. But the way I sell them is I just sell them as a pure raw mushroom. And
So you get to do it with it as,
Yeah.
it's like someone not dictating how your
if
medicine's
you
going to
wanted
turn
a
out.
tincture made out of that, I could make you that, or guide you on how to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, you pretty much just eat them the same way. You put them in a tea, or you just put it in a capsule and chuck it down.
Learning how to become our own alchemist for our own vessel,
Yeah.
basically, and utilizing.
But yeah, you definitely could cook with them, and they are delicacy.
So
Yeah,
we have an uncle that's.
Let's put them on pizzas.
you could. Yeah, put them in soups.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We wanted to do
French onion.
Come again?
On our uncle that has Alzheimer's. So.
Oh, lion's mane. That'll help with his
Lion's
his Alzheimer's. Yeah, no
Should
doubt.
we go through a journey as well, or would that reset him or bring him back? Or
Honestly, I don't think he'd benefit from a journey.
Do you honestly feel everybody should take a journey from a psychedelic versus a medicinal, or just is it beneficial to take a medicinal as the medicinal?
It
and
all
not have
depends
to
on
do
the
a-
person's state
Right.
of mind. Not everyone's stable enough to take a journey.
Yeah.
So you have to, it's almost like understanding where they are and what their intention is to guide them to the right mushroom.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, the trauma
it's
that
the
people have
experience.
had doesn't allow for that. So you do just have to give them microdoses and just help them maintain.
Because people who are also, from being in the medical field, keep this in mind, people who are sick have dis-ease. People who are sick do not feel good. People who are sick feel ill. They are in the mindset they are sick. So we have to help them with that mindset of pulling them from I'm sick to I am seeking healing. I am seeking healing. I am seeking healing. And they are seeking their own healing, because you can't heal another person when they're not ready for it. And I learned that through energy. Someone came to me and wanted energy work. I didn't realize they drank a bottle of vodka the night before. When they came over, when I was doing work on them, they actually were twitching all over my table. And I was like, I could sense the darkness, but I was exposed to that. So the healer also has to protect themselves, that this person's not coming from a low vibrational place expecting you to pull them out of where they are. They have to be in and take full accountability and responsibility for what you are taking into your mind, body, and soul. And so it's creating the access and the education for everybody to do their part, their 1%, to be responsible for themselves, because we can't lift another person, but we can show them how. Thank
Well,
you.
I did a couple of journeys on PTSD, and wow, I didn't realize how tight their DNA was wrapped. I mean, it was so tight and so dense that they weren't allowing the medicine to do the work, so they went into atrophy.
Yes.
So going into atrophy to unravel everything for 8 hours in atrophy, I mean, that's like the suckiest journey ever.
Because their body didn't understand them mentally, they went into it not in the right energy. And that's why we are going to have to take that responsibility of healers, of saying whether they're ready or not. They may think, but it has to be a consensual, energetic experience, because you're going to go through it with them. You're going to protect them, but you have to be strong enough energetically in the higher consciousness that you don't take on their darkness and anything that they come to you with, because we're dealing with people who are coming off of deep addictions, and they have a journey that we're having to help love them through unconditionally with no judgment, because they're coming in with shame, regret, all of the things that are attached to ego. And they're seeking the healing because they're not there yet. So they are going to come to us with those energies, and we have to be prepared, but also prepare them for the optimal experience. You don't want to rush the experience because that's getting a cake out of the oven too early. It's like saying, I want love to come to me, not I want it, well, you're going to get it, but it's not going to last. So it's those little things of slow and steady wins the race. It is a journey, not a marathon. And so getting them to understand that, everybody to understand that we didn't get this way overnight, so you're not going to get this. What you expect.
Yeah,
it's not going to be
exactly.
undone overnight. You have to do the work, and the work is dedicated to self-healing and wanting it, and having the guides there to help. And that's what our responsibility is, not to make sure that they understand we're not here to heal you. We're here to guide you and support you and protect you while you do your healing. You have to pull it in, and that's important. And John even has gone into some of that. We've had these conversations together just on my own journey and what to expect from different things.
A lot of those healings with PTSD and stuff, it's associated with neural pathways and depression. So the big journey, the big trip, that doesn't really help with that. It kind of deters them from trying it again.
Scares.
And,
The boogeyman. It's the monster under the bed.
what helps them is small doses. And if they're on medication, first off, they can't really, really take that journey until they're off those meds.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you got to wean them off the meds using the psilocybin.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they're off their meds, then you can further counsel with them and prepare them for the journey, and keep just taking it up a notch slowly. Like
The
have
doses.
a session where you do an active dose, just barely active dose, and you just have a session with them and try to work through some problems and stuff, talk, and see how they deal with that, and then offer it to them again. Tell them, would you like to try 1.5 now, or 2, or maybe you just want to do 1 again, or maybe
Like
you want to go
increments.
back down and find out how they're feeling.
That's really important too, and thank you, because one of the things I've learned on this journey, and why I sought talking points and things and asked for visions and guidance on this journey when I went to Mount Shasta as to what I can bring back to the community. And one of the things is like I saw a lot of, if you think about it, nature and even animals, they're unconditional love. They're here to teach us how to touch, how to love, how to connect. Some people can't use words and they can't connect, and that's why dogs are therapy for people. But if you think about an abused dog, do you want it to have an overabundance of love right away that's going to scare the shit out of it and it doesn't know what to expect after it's been abused? That's a shock. So what I've learned medically is, and even for myself, when it's a gentle, it's like a touch and massage. I can come over and I can slam you with my knuckle and go just as deep into your tissue, but it's going to hurt you because it's trauma, versus me gently putting pressure on that same point and allowing your body and your muscle to accept the pressure. I can go just as deeper from a gentle effect. That's what we are used to. And I mean, to gently take yourself on this journey and think about it as a wounded animal. We are all wounded. We're healing those wounds. You don't just take a pit bull that's been used for fighting and it's going to accept you, showering it with love. We're trying to get them to that love within and that alignment. So it's going to be a tool that we're going to use as gentle journey, spoon feeding them that guidance to take them along the way. And it's that trust. We are earning trust as well because it puts them in a vulnerable place. People have learned that vulnerability is weakness. And I'm not showing you my vulnerability because you're going to hurt me. And we're trying to get away from that emotional trauma mindset. So we don't want to blow somebody's mind and have a bad experience because if they do something outside of guidance, they can have a bad experience and we've just sent them backwards. So it's being very careful and delicate as if we are dealing with wounded species, and we are. We are a wounded species that's been hurt by things in so many ways, and taking that gentle approach of love is kind. And I want this to be a love journey, so I want it to be a kind journey for people. And that's what the journey has been for me through John, is a gentle, kind journey. I haven't had a bad experience. I've allowed it to be a microdose experience and for me to see what it's like, but not everybody needs that. So there are going to be some people that are going to need a heavier dose and a heavier experience to purge a heavier, dark, shadowy, emotional state, but they may not. So everybody's different.
A lot of the time, the people that can handle those heavy doses are young people, people that haven't really experienced much trauma, and
That's
those are
right.
the people that are going to be the spirit guides.
That's right, because they have less trauma covering their love light. And so that's the
Makes
community we want to also embrace, because children teach children and then let them lead the way, because they are the future, and we have to protect our youth right now simply because they are the extension of humanity. When we leave our bodies, and if our children are the only species left, that's why we have procreation. We don't want humanity to go extinct, so we really need to protect the youth. And there are a lot that are being pulled into meth, heroin, bath salts, and all the street stuff, and we're battling that. So we're rising up with the natural alternatives that are a safer option, because they've all had bad trips and bad experiences, and I've seen that along the way. On my journey, I saw a 13-year-old being basically prostituted at a resort, and all these young girls, and so they're going to have emotional trauma to deal with. And that's going to, psilocybin is going to be one of those options for people in the future of all ages, don't you feel?
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of it is educating people that you just don't take these drugs just to take them. They're actually medicine.
Right,
They're
and
actually
it's not a drug, and that's the thing.
It's a respect. There's no respect of it, and just taking it all hunky-dory and not having no intent behind it, or having a ceremony behind it where you're protected by that love and that light, and knowing that you're going to be going down and intentionally finding the answers to the questions that you've chosen.
Your soul seeks, yes. And that's beautiful, because where we are at this moment, and this has given me goosebumps, is it's a beautiful thing, because what we've done is created a full circle, and thank you guys for the circle, is that John has people that he provides product to that could also benefit from spiritual guidance, that can't seem to break through, and they're going to need that. They don't have anybody around them. Maybe they live alone, and maybe it's a senior, and maybe it's somebody who has a developmental delay or disability, and not a disability, because everybody has abilities, but having to work and adjust it to people's abilities as well. So that is offering him the opportunity to send people to you and us for this guidance, but we can also support John in what he's doing for the educational portion, so that really brings things together in the community for everyone.
Yeah, and having a system of education on what is what and why we're using it, and that way there's a solid answer to the product that's there, to the medicine. Yeah.
So I worked in psych for a long time, children all the way to geriatrics. I am by no means do I have a degree in psychology on paper. I worked in that field for many reasons, which I'm not going to divulge, but life brought me to that space. So I'm hearing all this because I was asking lots of questions then that make so much sense now. So question that I have for you, John, and maybe you can answer this as well, Wendy, is first, what background do you come from, just in terms of your experiential life, that brought you to this point to navigate this space, to help us all maybe even branch out in a way to support that kind of connection? That's my first question. My second question for you is, I heard at one point that Santa Fe was legal for mushrooms. This was years ago when I was looking into it for a boyfriend that I had who was struggling with depression. I was diving into the mushroom hole and talking to people using those things. What are the legalities? Because I've been reading a lot of different things lately, and my brain is going all kinds of directions right now.
We just talked about that. That's beautiful. So you asked a question I brought up when we got here. I said, can you talk about the legality? So excellent.
So that's kind of tricky. What happened in 2005 was this guy in Alamogordo got caught growing mushrooms, and he took it to the New Mexico Supreme Court. He fought it. And what he explained to the judge was that he hadn't actually grown the mushrooms. He had simply taken all the steps, and he had grown the culture, and he had provided the environment in which the mushrooms could fruit. And they found that that was totally legal, that he wasn't actually growing the mushrooms, that the patties were, and that
Nothing like sweet cow patty.
I don't know how those spores got there, but I found them under a cow pile.
So then the New Mexico Supreme Court deemed it legal to grow and possess mushrooms as long as they're not dry. Once they're dry, they're processed.
So they have to carry them around in their lovely little
Oh, hold on.
Nope.
I'll get to
Hang
that.
tight.
So
Loopholes! That's
the
why we're here.
loophole for that is that, like, if you're ever picked up, you're stopped or something, and they find them on you, you just tell the officer, "Look, I
Picked them
found."
up at a co-op along the road.
Well, there's a few different answers. You can say, yeah, something like, these are Chinese medicine. I don't know what strain of mushrooms they are. I'm not a mycologist officer. If you know these are psychedelic, or you know what these are, why don't you tell me? And
Take one.
yeah.
Well, even like you can.
Hey, let's both go to the side of this road.
And the other
My aunt uses these for her fibromyalgia.
And the other response you can tell them is that you found these when you went out hiking, and you don't know what they are, but you were going to go take them back and study them.
I'm gonna cook with the suckers.
There's not a field test that they can do. No field tests, nothing that they can look through and look at them and
What about
identify
blood
them.
type? So for cannabis, people test drug testing. Does it show up in drug tests?
Not that I'm aware of.
There you go.
I don't know.
No, they don't.
Stays in there for days, for 30 days, right? 30 or 40
But it doesn't show up on a drug test. They don't test for
You
it.
have to run a very specific panel.
Right.
And those panels
Or highly costly.
So I've seen people come off of all kinds of different drugs, to be honest with you. And when you run a full panel labs, which is what most people are familiar with, that your doctor can do, which is
Yeah.
usually just your blood work, right? Looking at all the different levels of hormones and what do you have in your system in terms of, do you have the right amount of calcium? It's a bunch of stuff. But to run a specific
It's a drug test that they would
drug
run.
test.
So it would be a drug test for psilocybin specifically, and they don't do that.
Well, actually, they do, and they do that here for some probation and parolees. So I wouldn't encourage them to use it.
Right. So the point though is that they do when they
They
run
don't
a
have
drug
the
test.
fundamentals probably to back that up.
Well, no. When they run a drug test, it's like when all the CBD stuff came out, people were getting medical marijuana cards, right? And so I would have clients go, well, gosh, you're going to use this oil on me. Is it going to be in my system? Well, you have to understand the way that THC sits in your fat cells and how it gets released.
Exactly.
How much water and all that. Well, eventually, over time, in the last couple of years, the panel testing that they do now is very specific down to very minute microdoses of specifics. They can detect their CBDs. They can detect, like, if you're in a high government job. But that's...
I have a loophole.
Yeah.
Grind them up. You can put them in a little jar and put your dog's name on it.
Oh, that's a great idea. These are cookies for the dog?
Just put a dog's name on it. They don't know what's in the jar.
I'm sorry.
It's ground up and it's ashy. They don't know what's in the jar. So you can put a name on it. Heidi. She goes with me everywhere. I'm not lying, but you want to know, it's big, but it's not, it's the truth. My dog Spirit is with me whenever I go on trips. And when I had it ground up in a jar, I had my dogs for something, the dog, and I noticed that I had my ground shrooms in a jar that had my dog's name on. I'm like, they're not going to ask and they're not going to confiscate that.
Nope, they certainly are not.
Phyto. Phyto. So no, you can grind them up. But this is the thing, you can grind them up when you get them and they don't know what they are.
Yeah.
You when I was young.
I was busy learning this shit.
So, the truth be told is this. We all don't want to go to the hospital. That's why we're doing all this, and we're going to be better. But should you end up in the hospital and they want to test you because they're, you know, they...
You have a right to say no.
Huh?
You have a right to tell them they can't run a
But
test
it's
on you.
true, but that would be the only time, and it would have to be very specific, and they would have to be looking for something.
Just don't get a vaccine and a microchip, please.
That's it.
That's all I'm asking.
What's a vaccine and a microchip?
Are there any interactions with this with any other kind of drugs?
Yeah.
Which one?
That's a good question. Interactions with other drugs.
Yes.
SS,
If you're taking like an SSRI for anti-anxiety or antidepressant, your dopamine receptors are different and your serotonin is different, so the mushrooms aren't gonna affect you as
Yeah.
much.
So that's why it's important to wean off the synthetics to get the natural in order for you to understand how it's working with your body chemistry.
Yeah.
So should they
It's gonna be
wean off
butting heads.
Yeah.
before they start the regime or?
Through microdosing, I think is what they say.
Yeah.
Microdose down on the antidepressants, but you can actually add when you're microdosing down on your dosage on the, or do you have to completely be off of them?
I used them to actually get off of
Right.
it.
So
I
you
was
introduced
taking-
it, but while you were weaning
Yeah,
down.
So I was taking 120 milligrams of Cymbalta, and I started microdosing. So I started weaning off of the Cymbalta
Great.
gradually, taking both at the same time, and then gradually tapering off the pharmaceutical.
Did your doctor question this, or did you say anything to him?
I didn't want to be on the medication anymore, and they wouldn't listen to me.
Okay,
So
So
I was just wondering.
So I did it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
See,
good.
that is being your own
I
alchemist.
helped. I helped a little.
Yes.
He helped.
He's like, John helped a little.
Just to be clear, Kathy, I know where you're going with this, because, so on certain medications, like an SSRI,
Yeah, because
you
you have.
cannot quit cold turkey.
Yeah.
You-
no,
you-
That's why the weaning down is important.
I weaned myself
Right.
off of
I'm
it.
just making sure every.
I wanted to make sure when we said that, it was like when he said you need to be off of it, it is, and this is highly important, that's why it came up, is my mother was on Lexapro and Oxys versus cannabis because her preacher's wife was her best friend and said, you're on the devil's lettuce, you need to get on meds. She committed suicide. And so the thing is if they supported what I was trying to help her with, she would possibly be alive today, which her spirit's with me, guiding me on this journey, and to help people thank you so much, John, to help people understand the benefits of what this does. And what we are preventing is other people having those losses and experiences because they're being pushed and from mainstream people thinking cannabis is the devil's lettuce is what her preacher's wife friend told her. And it was like the next day she committed suicide, put a gun in her mouth.
Everybody in here, has everybody been experienced?
Are you experienced?
Experienced in what?
Has everybody gone on the medicine journey?
Has anybody had
anyone
psilocybin,
not
a
tripped?
psychedelic medicine?
I have not.
Okay.
Not sure.
Natural, nobody has, okay. Or everybody has, but you,
Been on a journey?
excellent.
I'm a virgin.
That's okay.
You look like a penis.
She's like, I have to tell you, this is funny because he gave me some mushrooms. Okay, No, this is beautiful. So I made a tea with the mushrooms, and I was like, I'm going to save them until I ask him. So I froze them, and they were limp, right? But they had the perfect little cap, and there was I was over at a friend's house, and they were like, let's do mushrooms, and I'm okay. So I pulled them out of the freezer, and they thawed out, and it was like this limp little thing, and I put it up against me. I'm like, I've got penis envy. And we took a picture of it, and it was the cutest freaking picture. It was a perfect little mushroom cap, and I was like, aw, and it was, because it was a penis envy mushroom. So it was so cute. So yes.
It's all limp.
Actually there.
Yes, it was a little, it wasn't as limp as because it had a nice stem to it there. Yeah, that
Okay.
stalk.
Wake it up.
It was a nice thick base. It held it. So anybody have any other questions before? Should you, and how do you store them? Storage.
Dry is best. You can store them in honey once they're completely bone dry. You can store them in honey for years.
And what will they'll get submerged in them, but what do you do with them? You eat them coated in honey?
It'll extract too. If you have like a magic butter machine, you pop them all in there.
With
and
the
let it
honey?
run. Yeah, and then
It's psilocybin honey, shroom honey.
yeah, shroom honey.
Wow.
Once it starts to extract, it'll turn blue and it'll be blue
Thank you.
honey.
Syrup. Ooh.
John, I do have a question. So I got gifted some.
Oh, you did ask him though, may I ask?
Oh.
His background. You
Yeah.
asked about how you got into that.
I do want to know that, but I had to ask. They gave them to me, and I was like, oh, whatever. I left them in the little container, and it was for a while, and then I decided, okay, maybe I want to try them. This was like back in the fall. And I opened it up, and they were fuzzy, like they had
Ew.
additional fungus.
They hadn't dried yet. You got to get them
Okay, that's
bone
what I thought. I
dry.
was like, I don't think I should eat these.
Probably.
I
What did
did
it? Was
not.
it blue or black?
It's like
white?
bluish green.
Yeah, probably not the best. That's
They should be what?
what is that?
Grayish brown, little
That-
blue hue.
That's penicillin. That green stuff is
That
penicillin.
green stuff's penicillin. That's funny.
No, I'm aware of this.
Yeah.
My
So
grandma
cute.
told me
No, I wouldn't.
ahead of time.
Yeah,
The
word.
cheese.
So, that's no.
Yeah.
So we took the 8 grams, you know?
Uh-huh.
Each are 4 and 4. Oh Lord.
I did have an allergic reaction.
Oh.
And I swelled up. I
Whoa.
swelled up.
Some of it
Scary.
can trigger. Some of the compounds can trigger
Yep. And that's another
inflammation.
reason to just start slow and see how it's gonna happen. Yeah.
Swelled together.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this part of the trip or what?
We're like, is this our
Oh,
trip?
weird.
Fuck. And then I'm looking and
Are
It
you guys
can
on
co-
any special diet? Are you?
It can cause inflammation
did it.
if you had too much of the compound.
I'm higher than fuck. I go to Walmart, right? I have to go to Walmart. He doesn't want to cross the road. This is like a bad, like, fucking night because, you know, it was just so much shrooms. And I had to go get Benadryl and I had to go get yogurt so that way it could, like, and that's another thing. So you
Yeah.
learn what.
This
The
goes
digestion.
also like having someone there, like a trip sitter, someone who's not gonna get high and is gonna be there to take care of such emergencies.
Yeah.
Your trip is the reason why we're having this.
Yeah.
This was like so 5 years ago.
So-
I've never done that many, like,
I do have a question for him regarding teas in storage.
Maximum intake, maybe?
Real quick, John, if you
Uh-huh.
did make a tea like I did, and I had boiled water and poured it over and let them steep, and then I put them in the freezer. They were good in the freezer, right? Or how do you store them once you make a tea and
Ooh.
they're still?
Well, once you make a tea, you should consume it almost immediately.
Now,
How do you store them?
do you,
Fight.
In a dry container.
How long can you keep them in dry containers?
Again, like you can keep them in a dry container for a few months or something. You know, it's like weed. You know, it goes stale with UV radiation and things like that, oxidation. They start to lose potency. But if you store them in honey, yeah, yep, you got it.
It's an antiviral, so
Yes.
it's nice.
So it has no air getting to it, so it isn't oxidizing or any kind of.
yeah.
And if you pull them out and eat them, they're coated in honey.
Yeah.
I actually grind mine up, mix it with the honey, and I leave it for like 3
Yep.
months.
See, that's beautiful. See,
Yeah,
ground and in
that's
honey.
perfect.
I'm putting
Yeah,
lipstick
that-
on.
Yeah, and then you can add that to the water, to the 110 degree water, and just stir it in.
So you do say that it should be a little bit warmed up because it does release the alkaloids.
Yes. If you're gonna make a tea, try to keep it around 110 degrees. After that, the active compounds start to degrade.
So should you like trip by yourself, or should you have somebody who can?
It all depends on the person. you
Their
know.
energy. You don't want bad energy around you.
It all
And that's a
depends on
good
the
question.
person.
It's wise to have somebody with you, on a lower dosage, and if you're going on like on a major one, take your major.
Tag team.
Yes.
Because I don't think, because this is a sacred medicine, and it can take you, out.
And how do you pull yourself
You don't know
back?
how-
Yeah.
You don't know how to come back to yourself.
Yeah, and it helps to have another person on that small dose because they're going to be on the same, on the same vibration. Yes, thank you.
Right. And so you're protected. So it's a sacred frequency. And
Yeah.
they won't add anything low to your experience, but they'll be able to
It's
help pull you
almost
back.
how like when you're drunk, you can understand your drunk buddy and be on his level, but when you're not drunk and he's there, he's just an asshole.
Exactly. We've all experienced that. That's why everybody laughed. Part of the journey.
So our shaman, Patricio, he was part of the DMT study, and he said that it was very, very important for us to teach that not to go on your journey by yourself, because you may not come back like he did not come back. He said, I'm a totally different person.
Another spirit entered his body.
Another walking came in. So on one of the other levels came in. So that was something that he was really adamant about in his teaching us, that it's really important that you have somebody there with you to guide you back in.
I
And that's
personally believe
important.
it depends on the person, and
On the heavier journeys, the
again,
deeper ones.
the people that are going to be the leaders and are going to guide people down the spiritual path, they're the ones who have to be able to take that large dose on their own.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to go out there into the wilderness and find your way back. Make sense?
Oh yeah.
It's a
Yeah, like,
I've done that many times. yeah.
like reading stars and things like that to be able to know your center.
You have to have the experience to guide somebody through it. A skunk knows
Yeah.
a skunk. They know what it's like to be a skunk. If you haven't gone on that yes. So if you haven't gone, how can you protect
Yeah, and
and
not
teach?
to say that your Patricio, was not qualified or something, and that's why he didn't come back. Sometimes people don't come back because they're not meant to come back.
It was part
That
of his
old
journey.
them, wasn't even meant to be here.
To a certain point,
That's,
and then handing it off the baton. It's
Kind
almost
of like ego death.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're never the same. Your ego's dead, and you came back.
Even just opening up the baggie to get the medicine out, you get that.
Ooh, you're already like.
What kind of ride is this
That's
gonna
right,
be?
your body recognizes it.
Because, I don't know, even though you experienced it, even though you put that in their hand and you start that intention, it starts to build up.
And that's important to have that other person in that spirit guide. So even like when you do energy work, like when I sit there and I create the intention. I use my Palo Santo. I create that sacred space. So it's almost like you're going to take it's a dance. You're looking for that yin yang experience, that alignment, the ego death, and achieving that. So it's almost like you want to have that making love experience of the two sides of yourself in union. And not that they go too far into that dark, but they're able to, so where they can't come back. So you have to be enough in an energy of light and love to be able to prevent it in that environment from going that far. And that's what's beautiful. You are the lifeline for their soul and their spirit, and their spirit guide in that room at that point is what I have experienced. Because when I can feel another person's energy in their body and I can actually move it, and they can feel me moving it, it's almost like they feel someone pulling strings out of their body. And that's what they've told me. So having that ability to be able to penetrate somebody else's body with my energy where it's dominant, it's important for someone to be able to have that ability when someone's on. You are their anchor, you are their cord, their energetic cord to come back. And whatever's out there isn't stronger than your love and light. You don't want to get pulled off the cliff. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much.
Game of Trolls.
So yes, any other questions for John or myself? And thank you. Your journey, how you got here. Yeah.
End with that.
There we go.
Well, I've been on this path for a majority of my life. Probably got introduced to psilocybin mushrooms at the age of 13 from a good friend of mine. And over the years, this friend introduced me to his friend who produces them, and he needed help. So I helped him, and he doesn't have, his voice doesn't resonate with the community. He has a harder time, communicating with people. So it's more of a collective. I still help him. I'm kind of like his feet on the ground, and he helps me, and together we produce and we connect people within the community with medicine. And some people, of course, are using it recreationally, and can't really complain about that. But it does, like we were talking about, like a karmic impact. So when things like that happens, that's when chaos can occur. People doing chaotic things, and then karma takes its
Mixing
place.
too. They may be mixing it with
Yeah,
like
no
ecstasy
doubt.
or coke or something, and because they're seeking a higher thing that they feel, but they're not coming from the right intention. They're trying to experience a false high and not facing the things that they feel and they desire. So they're using it as a diversion tactic to not face the ego and the shadow stuff that they need to accept them for all of the spectrum that they are. Or maybe it's the inner child, they don't want to face the work that they have to do, so they use it as a diversion tactic, anything. And a combination can cause them to have that karmic experience. And when they are in that mindset, their law of attraction, they're going to attach, and karmic experiences are going to come to them. So they're high on multiple things, and they're looking at all of those things chemically, and somebody else is high on that. Well, the two of them are going to get together. Oh, we had a great time. And the next thing you know, reality hits when the drugs wear off, and they're not all that. But you just went there because you took yourself on a false high. We've all experienced that. It's like that drunk one night stand kind of thing. I haven't done that, but I understand.
It's where you think you attract
Caught ya.
Right. Yes. Where you think you attract a Cadillac because of where you on that fake illusional high, and you wake up in the morning and it's a beater with a broken windshield and the hood doesn't pop up or something. So yes, you get out of it what you go into it with. So I think that's important because you can have a karmic experience.
My role in the community is simply to find these people that are suffering.
Or they find you too.
And
Yeah.
they find me too, and bring them to someone like Tammany. I can put them in touch with the medicine, but that's about as far as I go with that. I mean, I can send them, helpful information, but my availability isn't to guide.
It is the access to the product.
My availability,
And the creator.
yeah,
Well, he does his part by creating
providing
it and
them
providing
with an
it.
environment in
Yes.
which to survive.
This whole team got you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so he produces the product that people are going to use for their journey.
Who's this lovely human in the blue shirt?
Oh, this is Sonia. She's been helping me do a lot of the research. She's the first person that I successfully got off the antidepressants.
And I feel so much better. Like
It's
my
beautiful.
life has totally changed. I'm so much more in tune with my body and feelings and connections with people, and it's just awesome. And I also make the chocolates.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, we had your chocolates.
To be
now.
awoken.
Sonia.
I was like, should we try it? I don't know, should we? I don't know.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
It was
I
a
look
dream.
forward
The chocolates are great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so how I got into it was basically, I talked about that in the beginning, was seeking, I was exposed to it through my twin flame actually, and I was going through some stuff and I was off of Lexapro. They had me on all kinds of medicines and I had to purge all the medicines off of me. But I also needed something additional for the pituitary. And so it actually had an amazing effect, and it just kind of grew from there as I started microdosing and learning things with John and wanting to know more. I understood I had to go through this, have the pituitary tumor, go through this, understand the psilocybin, so I can turn around and help be a spiritual guide for people who need it. Something additional for the calcifications and neurological deficits from a medical standpoint. And since I've been in the community as a respected medical practitioner, respiratory care practitioner, cardiopulmonary for over 20 years here in New Mexico, it is important to understand that I've touched from prenatal to people passing on and holding them while their energy transferred to another dimension. And that comes with a lot of emotional stuff as an empath and a spiritual guide. So being able to microdose for my own health, for my own psychological healing, for my own, I had strokes from a chiropractor twisting my neck and damaging the artery to my brain. So I've gone through all of these things, but I've understood that the journey has been for me to uncover the natural things, to bring that to surface, for us to work together on that being available and being an advocate for that, because as we all know, we've had positive experiences, some people have negative. Well, our goal is for everybody to have a positive experience, and that is to get them to align with love. And the one way to do it is to find what works for them, microdosing, little bits of love. It's like you don't walk up to somebody and go, let's get married, before you even go, hi, my name is. So you know what I'm saying? So you don't just go up with the whole big bang. It is gentle love, and that's the journey that I want people to have. And that's where I'm coming from, is from a medical, as also from a professional, but also as a healer, an ascended master, a Kundalini, understanding all the different things and how it actually helps with the third eye awakening and the Kundalini release that we need, in that union of our masculine and feminine, our yin and yang, to unite, which is basically what people call our angel and devil inside, our dark and our light, our ego and our love, and those two coming together and having that alignment and weaving that web where you understand you have that spectrum of dark and light, and it's yours. Play with it, but you also understand where it's not to go past the buoy because that's dark waters, deep waters, and do you want to swim in that again? Because will you come back? And that's like the dark pit of addictions and things like that. And so I understand that because I've been surrounded by it, and the one thing I asked is, how can I help heal the world? Show me, give me the abundance, the resources to help heal the world, body, mind, and soul, and bring us back to one love, and it be the new world we need, like a playground. And so it's been introduced into my spiritual growth and journey, and that's why it was important for me to be able to bring John up to the surface in the collective frequency for it to be available on this level for our spiritual light workers, starseeds, and those that are going to need to be the ones in the community that are going to help those souls that are extremely wounded, because we have a lot of sex trafficked children and women, and even some men that have deep wounds that we haven't experienced their darkest dark. So how do we help them? And this is the journey that we're on.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I take it on with so much pride and energy and excitement, because it's going to take all of us doing our 1% for 100% of it to get done. And John's doing an amazing job here, and so professional and so aligned and so wonderful and kind to work with, and just a great soul. And so you can reach him on Facebook, and Tammy, you'll have his information. And if you want to, since we're live video, tell him, spell your name.
You can try to find it just by me saying it, so I'll spell it. John Lefebvre, that is Lefebre.
And that's on Facebook?
That is on Facebook.com.
You on Instagram?
I am on Instagram.
Technology.
F-U-N?
P-H-U-N_G-I.
P-H-U-N_G-I, fun guy
At
on Instagram.
Instagram.com.
And I am actually in Empyrean Paradiso, E-M-P-Y-R-E-A-N, which if you look it up, it means the highest light in the heavens, which is where I understand I came from and traveled all the meridians in the galaxy, Orions, the Sirians, Palladians, and Arcturians, and all of that, to be able to understand all of that and come here in Paradiso, which is from Dante's Paradiso, growing varietals, and it's paradise, so it's heavenly paradise, and I'm supposed to bring that to earth. So that's the purpose I'm on with everything that I am bringing together, and this being a part of the sustainable communities that we're going to be creating, and this will be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Tammy and
you
Anthony,
guys. Thank you.
providing
Yes.
his.
Thank you. You guys have a good one, and thanks for joining us here on YouTube live at the Collective Frequency. Peace,
you
love,
next
and
time.
namaste.